Welcome to Make More Marbles. My name is Brad Hart, and we're here to interview the game changers, the future makers, the co-collaborators and creators who are here to collaborate with one another towards a better future for all of us. Enjoy the show. We've got a great guest coming up for you right now. Welcome to Make More Marbles. My name is Brad Hart, and today I am thrilled, excited, and grateful to have Ash Rowe on the show. Thank you so much, Ashley Rogers. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. Thank you so much. Do you prefer Ash or Ashley? It doesn't matter.
Ash, I rebranded early in life because there was, Ashley was the most common name in the year that I was born.
Which year was that?
1987.
Ooh, got you beat by a couple years, 85. And Brad was not a
Okay.
common name back then, so it worked out.
You.
Were you named after somebody in your family?
I was named after a girl on the bus that my grandmother drove.
Oh, interesting. So there was actually an Ashley that you were named after. I was named after my grandpa, Brad. And my grandma,
Oh, yeah.
she used to call me BJ because she didn't want two Brads in her life. And then when I was 16, I had to say, Grandma, you can't call me BJ anymore. She's like, why, Brad? I'm like, I don't want to tell you, Grandma, but just don't call me BJ anymore.
It's taken on new meaning in my adolescence. Yeah, sorry about that.
So I had to tell my poor 90-something-year-old grandma that I wanted to change my name. But luckily, Grandpa had passed away, so I was the only Brad in her life again. You can teach an old dog new tricks sometimes. Awesome. So, all right, for people that don't know who you are and how amazing you are, I want to give them a little bit of a background. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, your heroine's journey, if you will, and how you've come to be the most amazing Ash Rogers that you are today.
Wow. Well, I will give you a short version, not to bore anyone, and then we can dig in more if you're so interested.
I'll pull on the threads until the naked truth shows up.
But I grew up in a suburb of Phoenix, and got into the work that I'm currently in after university. Went to Uganda for working with a nonprofit, and got to work with local leaders, and was really inspired by that, and did that for a couple years before grad school, and then after graduate school moved back to Uganda with a fellowship program called Global Health Corps, and started working with a private family foundation, and worked with them, and lived in East Africa for 5 years and loved that work, and but realized sort of it was really fun to give away a billionaire's money, and that's really fun work to be able to do, but felt really jealous of the entrepreneurs that we invested in and that we granted to, and wanted to get back on the implementation side. And so Lwala Community Alliance, who I work with now, had been in that grant portfolio. I got to know them for years and years, was really inspired by our founders. And so when the outgoing ED reached out, I was very pregnant, and living in Nairobi at the time, and was supposed to hear back on the board vote about my candidacy for the role, and on September 30th at 8:30 a.m. and went into labor at 2:30 that morning. And
Ooh.
so I was, in labor in an Uber on my way to the hospital in Nairobi, and took this Skype call. I'm realizing this is very like technology driven story. And took a Skype call to hear, enough that I was.
What year is this, by the way, where they had Skype and Uber in Nairobi?
Yes, this is like 2 years ago.
Okay, got it. So fairly recently. When I was there, they did not have Uber. Let me put it that way.
Let me tell you, Nairobi is a hip city, and
it's in there, right?
Yeah, and on the curve of technology for sure. Anyhow, so I realized I was getting the job offer. I gave birth a few hours later, and hemorrhaged postpartum, and
oh wow.
Yeah, and it's life-threatening. It's very scary. Had to have an emergency blood transfusion. But more importantly, it's the leading cause of maternal death in Kenya. And the work that Lwala does is all around providing care to pregnant mothers so that they deliver safely and taking care of their kids through the age of 5. And so it was sort of really cosmic moment for me of feeling pretty tapped in to the work that I'm doing, and sort of an example of when you decide to sort of put yourself out there and to lean in to a big challenge, how the universe just sort of comes around you and makes that meaningful. So now I am the executive director of a nonprofit that works in Western Kenya. We have a hospital and a really successful community health program that's built off of the structure of community health workers. And we currently serve a population of 30,000, and my job is to expand the reach of that model from this population of 30,000 to reach 1 million people over the next several years, and ultimately to change the Kenyan health system.
I love it. So I've been to Kenya a little bit. I spent about
Yeah?
10 days there in 2011 with Tim Ferriss and Charlie Hone and Samasaurus, who's
Okay.
doing some amazing work over there. So I've been to like Nairobi, where it's like one
Mm-hmm.
side of the wall is the 5-star hotel, the other side of the wall is there's trash burning on the streets,
Yeah.
and there's some abject poverty there for sure. And then I've been to Lamu, which was a really fun island. I almost got
Oh,
trampled by donkeys.
beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
It's like one of the most beautiful places on earth.
so the donkey tramplings and the malaria happened there. I've also been down to the Serengeti and kind of the Tanzanian border. So when you say Western Kenya, where is that exactly? Is that kind of more
So,
towards?
just west of the Mara. So, the Mara is the Kenya side of the Serengeti. And so if you just sort of go, if you just go west towards Lake Victoria, that's where Lwala is, in a little village tucked in there.
Beautiful. And you're currently reaching about 30,000 lives, and you want to have
Right.
an impact of 1 million in the next 7 years. So what does it look like to go from here to there, and how do we support you in doing that?
Yeah, it had come about from an invitation from the Ministry of Health. So it is really great health outcomes. A lot of this is pushed forward by technology and by data and by being able to show the impact of work on the ground. And the Ministry of Health reached out to Lwala and asked us to expand the work that we're doing to the entire county that we're part of, which is 1 million people. And we're going to do that in a couple ways. So one is sort of thinking about, what does scale mean in terms of our direct service delivery? So can we get just like great business processes so that we can grow the community health worker cadre that we have and their supervisors, and connect them to the public health system, and what's sort of the right level of scale for that direct service. And we're thinking that that's somewhere between 150,000 and 300,000 people. And then can we work with other grassroots organizations, sort of like a micro franchise model, to help them replicate this community health model? And at the same time that we're sort of working from the bottom up, can we work from the top down and influence government policy and influence the Ministry of Health and get them to ultimately be the end payer of the model?
Okay, great. So the model, just to kind of break it down, so you have the direct people you help, you have the technological scalability of it, you have the donors, you have the impact, you have the Ministry of Finance connection. So it sounds like you have kind of, obviously there's a need, right? And this is a validated model. You have a lot of the technology pieces, you have the ministry support. So is it just more dollars going through the machine, or what do you think is the most, like, what's the biggest bottleneck right now?
No, I think there's a couple pieces. One is this really fascinating thing that's happening globally of getting the technology right. And so there's these large electronic medical record systems that have been built out, and that piece exists. And there's a lot of cool stuff happening at the moment around mobile health. So stuff that you can collect on a tablet or on a phone and get like community level data from. But the connection between the two, it hasn't yet been built out really anywhere. And then the third connection of how can you connect both of those to all governments have like large aggregated data systems. Actually, most have better aggregated data systems than the US. But how do you get all of that data to feed up into that aggregated data system? And that sounds just like not very exciting. But the exciting part of it is that you can have all of this big data, and that allows you to analyze a whole bunch of stuff in real time and respond to outbreaks and epidemics. You can give real-time feedback to your frontline health workers that allows you to both deliver better care and deliver a service model at a larger level of scale. So like one is just like getting the technology right. And then the other piece, which is a little bit more nebulous, is that we believe that our model is particularly successful because it's community-led. So Lwala was founded by a group of community members who just wanted to have access to healthcare. And because of that, it's been layered upon this really cool iterative process, really participatory process over the years. And that sort of lays the foundation to have a lot of health impact. So the question is, that's fantastic. Like, how do you replicate that? And how do you figure out how to sort of have that regenerative participatory process happen over and over in new communities?
I love that. And I think that's part of the story too. So a couple of downloads happening. I don't know if you've read this book yet, The Surrender Experiment.
I've not.
Okay, so Michael A. Singer, he's the author of The Untethered Soul and The Surrender Experiment. This is the one that people have been begging me to read for a long time, and I tend to listen after, I don't know, the 50th time. So I'm reading through this book, and I just got to a part this morning, literally, when I was reading it, about how he built his company, which is called Medical Manager. It was the first medical records billing system that was integrated across the whole United States. This is back in like the 80s, right? But I bet this guy could solve that problem.
I think that there's lots of like smart technologists that could solve our problem.
Absolutely. But I have his email. I already had my internet gnomes go and Google it. So I'm going to just reach out to him and be like, hey, I know somebody that could use something.
Yeah, you send him a note. I would like that.
Well, you never know. I was going to reach out to him anyway, but I'll just add that to the email. So that's always fun. And it's obviously pressing because it's like literally in front of my face right now and I'm reading it and everybody's like, oh my God, it's such a great book. And he believes in that, the whole idea of the book is surrendering to what shows up. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like some weird podcast guy just reached out to me about some connection that he has in Africa. And these people need a solution. It sounds like this is the kind of stuff these are the kind of problems you guys eat for breakfast. Why don't you guys have a chat? So we'll see what happens in that. And I never know what's going to happen, but it's always beautiful when it shows up. So I always just go
put a genius on it. That's what we need.
Exactly. This dude's a mega genius. So if anybody's got the answer, I think he would. Anyway, so that segue aside, the second issue, I always think of technology as, we're moving from this world and from our programming of linear and local to geometric and exponential. I had the very distinct and rare pleasure of meeting a guy named Peter Diamandis at the beginning of the year, who's been a hero of mine for a long time. Right about the time I went to Africa, I actually read his book for the first time, Abundance, that changed the world of how I look at things, from an idea of like, okay, how can we utilize resources in a way that serves more people and just eliminate waste in this idea of scarcity, because there's way more than enough to go around if we just utilize it properly. And then the technology just becomes a leverage point to do that. So I'm wondering if you've had any experience, kind of in the technology zone, looking at things that you're like, man, if we could just get that implemented, we could really just take off and do amazing things. Or if you're not aware of a solution, maybe I could suggest some.
I would love to hear what you're thinking about, but I think that like the piece to get right is how you get the service delivery and the people processes and how you get those to translate and inform the technology that you're using. So we right now use a Salesforce platform that we've sort of built out and built dashboards behind, and then used, there's sort of lots of different types of mobile health platforms. The one we use is called ComCare, and it's pretty good. But the trick is like if we can get them to match our people processes well, and if we can get those people processes right. And then of course, just like can it integrate with all of the different data systems that exist in the world that they sort of need to link up to.
Okay, so it's essentially just a customer relationship manager like a Salesforce with the added benefit of people being able to see the impact that they're having and continue to get involved and kind of follow along on their own side as well. Am I
Yeah, and you need so imagine you're a community health worker and you go into a mother's home and you provide her with a home pregnancy test and you find out that she's pregnant. So you begin enrolling her into this system. Now the system's going to prompt you to test for a bunch of other stuff. So see whether or not she knows her HIV status and then test her for HIV. Let's say she is HIV positive. There's a whole series of other things that you need to connect her to and other types of screenings that you'd want to do. So the system both gets you to input that data and then prompts you on actions to take, or they might say, it's really important that you teach this mother a prevention to mother-to-child transmission module. And so it would actually queue up that module for you on your tablet and guide you in providing that information to the mother. And so it's basically how can we take folks who a lot of times are illiterate or have really low literacy and make them both able to consume data, to share data, to be the best possible care provider to that person sort of in the moment. And technology sort of allows us to get a lot of that done.
Yeah, I almost see this as being, a device kind of level issue and a device/app. You have all the processes and systems, and I want to pick your brain more about the entrepreneurial side of things, because obviously you've had to figure a lot of this out that didn't exist before, and you've already done that in a beautiful way. I wonder if it's not just a ability to, it's essentially what you're talking about is a workflow chart, right? It's like a flow chart of if this, then that, if this, then that. And that's what computers are great at. And then just having that device in hand and that system in hand that's easy enough to use for everybody that wants to get involved with that. So when you come across something like that, and if I come across something like that, the reticular activating system is now activated, I'll make sure to send it your way. But for anybody listening who is a technologist, is a software person, is in the medical field, understands these particular issues that people are having, I really see this as a huge opportunity to help more people. And it's just that little tiny connection, that resource, that opportunity, that person, that system that can catapult your mission to the next level. It takes it from impacting 30,000 people to 1 million people. And that's really what we're here to do, is just connect. That's it. As a human or as a technologist or as an entrepreneur or whatever hat you currently are wearing, however you identify, that's, I think, the point of life, is to connect. Because otherwise, why would we be living it? And why would we need things from each other? We'd just be all sovereign individuals. And that's really not, I don't think that's the point of life. So,
amen. I'm with you.
What drives you, Ash? Why do you get up in the morning these days? I know you have your original mission, but what is most exciting and pressing for you right now in your life?
Yeah, I think that, one quote that really stays with me is from a philosopher named Gustavo Gutierrez, and he says that the poor are a byproduct of a system that we created and that we're responsible for. And that is both accusatory and sort of accuses all of us of the incredible state of inequity and social injustice in the world. But it's also at the same time really hopeful that the systems that we sort of exist in, they were created by someone, and those people capable or intelligent than the rest of us. And so it was created by humans and it can be broken by humans, and that to me is really exciting and sort of a driver of the work. And an even more personal level, as a woman, as a young mother, as a consumer of reproductive healthcare, the idea that you wouldn't have access to that most basic human need of healthcare, of being able to decide when to have a child, of being able to give birth to a healthy child and keep that child alive, that's not available to a billion people on this planet. And has really limited access for a lot of others. And so that is incredibly driving and motivational to me. And we see, some people say well, why work in Africa? Why work so far away? And I think that we can see repercussions of injustice that happen all over the world, and that it affects all of us. And, we work in the Lake Victoria Basin, which you've seen is beautiful and has some of the most biodiversity in the entire world. And it also is an epicenter of a lot of the pandemics that we've experienced, including HIV and Ebola and Zika, all come out of these forests that line the Lake Victoria Basin. And I think that's just like such a example of how allowing injustice to spread in any one location affects us all globally. And so even though the work that I might currently be doing in Western Kenya sort of focused on, eventually this population of 1 million, that work has ripple effects for me in my life and for the rest of the planet.
That's incredible. And there's a lot to kind of dig into there. So I'll start with the Gustavo Gutierrez quote: "Poor are a byproduct of a system that we created and we are responsible for." I believe that's hopeful too, because if we can change the game, and that is a literal definition for me. When I talk about interviewing the game changers like yourself, you're trying to create a better game, because really it's just a question of, there's this great book called Finite and Infinite Games. I think it was by James Carr, but I could be wrong. And it just discusses the idea that, a finite game is a game with a winner and a loser. It's designed to end, and the rules are, hey, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. And that's what we could, relate to as a zero-sum game in society. There's only so much to go around. Scarcity is a thing, and you got to win, you got to grab for all the marbles, right? And then there's this idea of an infinite game, where the only rules that exist are so that the game can keep being played, so that more people can win over a longer period of time. And the only rules exist are to just keep the game going, right? And that's a make more marbles kind of philosophy. It's like, well, hey, there's not enough to go around. Let's make more. Let's find a way to use these resources. And it's almost like you touched on the Pandora's box effect, right? It's like you actually work ground zero for 3 major epidemics. I never knew that, by the way. Thank you for sharing that. Ebola, Zika, and HIV came out of the Lake Victoria area. And it's just fascinating to think, like, if we could heal that, if that wasn't the case,
Yeah.
and then the game wasn't set up to just exploit and to keep the poor and and I don't know if I believe that. I mean, there's a great old saying by Winston Churchill: "Democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others." I think the same could be said for capitalism, right? It's the best system we've got. It's the best system we've ever had, and it's end stage right now. We're seeing the fact that as we stratify further and further, people who are just playing the game, playing by the rules, are winning, whereas other people who can't or won't or don't want to or whatever, they can't win, right? They can't win. And I believe that there is a better system, and it's up to us. We have the ability, now we have the responsibility to create those better games that are more infinite and will serve more of humanity, because I believe they're out there, and they're mathematically probable that they will exist. But the longer we resist that, the longer we have this and hold on to these beliefs that it's not possible, the more it persists, as we're seeing now. And the work that you're doing is it's a microcosm of a bigger issue.
That's
and
right.
It's important, and it's valuable, and it's so important. But anytime you see a problem in the world, are we going to be the people who say somebody should do something about that? Or are we going to be the people who say, I am somebody and I want to do something about that, and feed the solution and not just the problem? And I want to applaud you for the work you're doing.
Thank you. No, that resonates with me a lot. And I think that one of the, the space that you operate in, and sort of this entrepreneurial space, and the ability to have new business models and drive sort of scale through new business models, really exciting. And it represents a bottom up version of capitalism and democracy, that unfortunately is more and more difficult to make happen in the current setup of the world. And I think that it's highly relevant to the work that we're trying to do as well, which is, there's been, particularly in global health, this space that I'm in, is this really like false dichotomy driven, that we sort of think that scalable solutions are top down and they're vertical and they're sort of streamlined, and that you might have sort of cute boutique holistic bottom up solutions developed somewhere, but they're not scalable. And I think that
I think the key phrase there is
right.
yet, because
That's
AI
right.
and robotics and automation are coming. They're coming fast. And we're going to see the end of capitalism, whether we like it or not, because we won't be able to compete with that. Nobody will.
And that will be a bottom-up process that's driven, right? And hopefully drive sort of more entrepreneurship and more democratization of the world.
It'll have to. We won't have a choice, or half the population is going to die. I mean, that's the real existential threat, is like, guys, I've seen the end stages of capitalism. If we keep going along this competition route instead of switching over to cooperation, it's game over for the human race. And I think a lot of the really wealthy people have kind of seen past the matrix and understand this, like the Elon Musk of the world. They get that. And they're already advocating for things like UBI. And what are your take on some of the solutions for this? Like, I mean, I know there's lots more people already discussing this in the media and other places, but I'd love to hear your take on it.
Oh gosh, you might be beyond my capacity here. But no, I think one thing that you know I'm trying to drive through my work with Lwala and sort of like a larger life mission, is to try to figure out how we find the strokes of genius and the things that are working in these sort of little bright spots all over the world, or in the place that I know better is in East Africa, and how we find ways to elevate those voices and to elevate those ideas. And how to do that in a way that proves the current system wrong. And so, at Lwala, if we can take this really holistic, really bottom up, like hyper local solution, and position that and sort of show the system that it's uniquely positioned to change the system and improve the system. I think that's sort of one little chip in the armor of the status quo.
I love that. And you talked about elevating voices and ideas and really calling out the people who have a better mousetrap, if you will, for what the problem is that you're trying to solve. And that's really been the thread of this conversation, is like, what is the thing we're just not asking the right questions to arrive at?
Yeah.
That's going to just be the tipping point that's going to change your impact, our impact, everybody's impact. And I know it's coming. It might already be here. Like, there's an old saying, the future's here. It's not evenly distributed, but it's here.
Yeah.
And like, maybe there's a very wealthy, connected person, or somebody who's done a lot of, thinking on this particular problem that's listening right now, who already has kind of figured that piece out. And they just need to get it in the hands of people like yourself, who can then be a catalyst for its adoption. Because people don't like not knowing about the coolest, freshest, hippest thing. They see somebody driving the new Tesla and they're thinking like, I want to drive a new Tesla. They're already machinating and scheming towards it. And that's how electric cars get cool. And that's how we solve this problem, right?
Yeah.
People's needs, wants, and desires drive their consumption and ultimately shift these issues on their own. Like, we don't have to change humans. We just have to work with the human paradigm to get the result that we want.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
As a function of what you're doing, what are some of the ways that we can really get people involved? Like, I truly think, and I think about a lot of this because we do a lot of charitable work around the world, and, Syrian refugee camps and house builds, and the way that we do it, we're not comparing, it's very apples and oranges, but I think a lot about this. And I just truly believe that if there was more positive messaging, if more people heard a story of how the impact and the fulfillment piece changed somebody's life, and not just anybody, but successful people that had a lifestyle that was exactly what society said that they should want, and that didn't fulfill them. And then they went and switched over to this side where they're contributing and growing. And, I truly believe every entrepreneur or every investor needs a way to generate money, make it. They need a way to grow money, protect, invest it, and they need a way to give it away. The 3 Gs, right? If they don't have a way to give it away, you're missing the point. There's an old saying, money doesn't buy happiness. I just believe those people haven't tried to give enough away yet. And when they do, they might see that on the other side of that.
Generosity is like one of the biggest gifts that we have, right? Like the opportunity to feel generous, it's just like huge privilege. And actually, like, I think that's like part of your philosophy, right? Of being able to network and to share and sort of make more marbles. That's right.
Somebody's got to make the damn marbles. It's like the guy at 4 a.m. on the Dunkin' Donuts commercials. Got the time to make the marbles.
No, but like but honestly, like, what makes you feel bigger or more important than like being able to be generous and like showcase that generosity in front of others? Like, that's a cool thing to be able to do. And, I think I've thought about this before, and it's like the idea that in a lot of cultures, but particularly in East Africa, like folks are so hospitable, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you're hosting a visitor and you're bringing them in, and you sort of really go out of your way to host that person. And, you know, because you're a kind person and because it's your culture and because it's beautiful, but also because like it honors you, and it makes you feel good, and you like value that opportunity to be able to do that, and it brings dignity to you, and it brings dignity to the visitor, the person that you're sort of bestowing that generosity on. And so anyhow, no, I think that like one of the coolest things that we have an opportunity to do in this life is give, and to be generous in that way.
I love it. And thank you for being an embodiment of that, and I can tell, I talk to a lot of people, Ash, I can tell when people are kind of doing it from an ego perspective or significance perspective, or they're truly trying to grow and contribute in the world. And I can tell you just want to help, and you want to really get your head around this issue. And we all have these metrics, right? Those million people. It's not going to work
Mm.
until you work, right? It's not going to, your business or your mission or your impact doesn't grow until you grow, and you're on that path of growth. And I want to support you the best we can. So I think the best way we can do that is for anybody listening. And this is a call to action I make on every podcast. I never tell any of the guests about it beforehand. I'm very
Oh,
strict and tight-lipped about it. Is, we believe in seeking in every encounter to diagnose, getting clear on what the issue is, serve, support, and solve, create space, serve, support, and solve. That's the seeds we plant. And then finally, crops, connect resources, opportunities, people, and systems together so that we can move your mission forward faster, right? All the marble makers in tandem, making more from what would be less if we didn't collaborate. It's their core value. So what is a way that we can connect you to, person, a system, a resource, a system, whatever it is that you need next to make your
yeah.
mission move faster?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say a couple things. I think that there's certainly a technology piece where we're looking for smart folks, for coders, for people that can help us customize our data systems. Um, there's um, a finance piece in that there's all different sort of different types of revenue streams. While we're a nonprofit and we have run a lot on charitable donations, we also have patient fees, and we run a health insurance fund, and we run a community bank, and we're trying to build an endowment. And so smart finance folks who can help us figure out different pieces of that would be super helpful. And if folks want to donate and become part of our mission by actually giving of something of their own, they can go to our website, Lwala Community Alliance.org, and Lwala spelled Lwala spelled Lwala, Lwala Community Alliance.org.
Wonderful. And that's a 501c3 nonprofit, I would imagine. Wonderful.
That's right. So it's a charitable deduction. If folks want to give at larger amounts, we can sort of talk you through that in different ways. You can donate stock. Um, so there's all different types of ways that folks can become involved with us, certainly by donating, but also we need smart people to join the sort of strategic thought leadership and sort of figuring out different components of what we're trying to do.
I love it, Ash. And thank you again for the work that you do in the world. And if people have more questions, I'm sure they can go to the website and see, like the finance guys all want to know, where's the money going and how much is it actually, because, you see these major corporations, Red Cross, 7% of their money actually goes to the people who need it. And 93% goes to, big marketing and budgets and salaries and, things like that. And I don't know if it's right or wrong. I mean, maybe that 7% of what they put in is way more effective than 90% would be in another organization. Certainly you need to spend money in order to make, impact and lasting change. So I'm not totally beating up on it. I don't know, whether that is the way to go. But when you hear a number like that, you wonder if some of that 93% could go more towards the people who need it.
No, and you may know this is a big debate in the nonprofit sector for sure. And I think that you have to be able to invest in business processes, like I was mentioning before, and that's really important for if you have a goal to scale. But there's probably a percentage that's reasonable, and it's probably a bit more than that. No, but we have we have our 990s on our website. We could talk through our audits
Awesome.
and financials with anyone who'd
Give me
be
the numbers. Give me the good stuff.
to dig in with us. Yeah.
Beauty. I love it. And then when you're not in Western Kenya, where are you based in the United States?
Yeah, in Nashville. So I sit within the Institute of Global Health at Vanderbilt University.
Wonderful.
And so our founders are two brothers from the village where was the epicenter of our work. And they started Lwala while they were medical students here at Vanderbilt. And so very early on, Vanderbilt has gotten involved in our mission, supported a lot of our research, which has led to a lot of our impact numbers, and it's been a lovely host for our US office here.
That's beautiful, Ash. And thank you so much for everything, for sharing with us, for just making yourself available, sharing your story. And I guess we'll just kind of wrap it up with how can people get in touch if they have that solution for you? And then some parting words for the audience.
Yeah, you can reach me on email. Should I share my email address?
Sure, why not? And if you like nice people reaching out to you about stuff that you need.
So you can reach me on email. It's ash, A-S-H, at lwalacommunityalliance.org.
And if we could spell it one more time, please.
Ash, A-S-H, at Lwala, which is L-W-A-L-A, communityalliance.org.
Alliance.org. Well, send her some love, send her some connection, send her some happy notes if she changed your life in some small way or made your day brighter. Thank you so much, Ash, for being on the show. Any parting words for the people listening at home?
Hey, thanks for listening. It's cool to be part of this community. Thanks for letting me join.
Bible makers doing cool stuff. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Make More Marbles podcast. For more tips, hacks, and strategies to create an amazing, abundant life in your health, wealth, and relationships, whatever that means to you, head on over to makemoremarbles.com. Check out our cool explainer video about what we're about and join our community of entrepreneurial game changers. We want to help you level up your life in every possible way. And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and please do leave a review. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next podcast.